Hi, welcome to Gutsy Christianity with Rosa Hopkins. So today's topic is, why can't I be more like her? Why can't I be more like him? Why can't I be more like them? A lot of us feel that way, and it's for different reasons. I know in my case, I don't have abilities that certain people consider stereotypical for women or expected, like you're supposed to be crafty if you have a child, or you're supposed to help with decorating, or be good with childcare, working in the nursery, and all the different things that are expected. It's kind of stressful when you don't meet up to those expectations, and sometimes you expect it of yourself, and then other times there's things that no one expects but that you wish you could be or do, that you have certain aspirations of what you would like to see or do or be that you hold internally. There are people that I see who are incredibly social, and a lot of times I feel envious of that because I don't have a certain amount of aplomb when moving through the crowd and being able to schmooze with people and network and hey, who are you and what's your name? I remember you at last Timmy's softball match. I don't have that. If I did see them again, I wouldn't care. Like I don't have the people person, the schmoozing, but sometimes I see people that are good at that, and it makes me feel like maybe it would be better if I could do that too. And you have a lot of things that sometimes are opportunities that you're not able to explore because other people have capabilities. Like, I also have chronic illness, for example, and I spent a lot of time on the couch sitting. I spent a lot of time being out of commission, so to speak. There's sometimes months have gone by. In 2010, I spent an entire year on the sofa, and I had to be propped up because I could not sustain a lower elevation. My heart rate would become faster, it would get rapid, and I wouldn't be able to sustain that. And so I had to always be elevated, and an entire year went by, and I would see people doing all the things that they did, and I would just wish, why aren't I stronger? Why can't I do the things I want to do? Maybe I'm a failure. And so sometimes also people will judge you if you're a mom, for example, and you're not able to go take your child to the Easter egg hunts. I don't even know if they do those anymore because of COVID, but there's a lot of things that they will imply rather strongly that you're a bad mother if you can't do certain things. And as far as the reasons why we do or don't do certain things, sometimes we just can't. And you do get that judgment. I've been judged because my husband picks up a lot of the caretaking, for example, for our daughter, and a lot of the grocery shopping too. They go out shopping together, my baby and my husband, and people think that they're cute, but people think that I'm a failure because I should be doing more. And a lot of times when people are judging our situation as to why we can't do things, we're not the only ones asking those questions. Other people are too. And then you feel the weight of what people think about you. And I know it's common for people to say, well, what do you care what people think? But you do, because it implies something about you to be true, which then, if I am a failure, then that means I don't have a purpose. That means I'm a waste of space. And then some people will take that further. If you're a Christian, he that does not work should not eat. And sometimes, there's this logical conclusion that if you are not pulling your weight in a certain way, maybe you don't even, this gets getting really dark, but your thoughts can spiral. Why am I even here? And I've certainly gone down that rabbit hole many, many times, and it starts simply enough with, how come I can't do this thing that all the other women or the other moms or the other people in my age group or whatever it would be? And then it can spiral into anxiety, which I have that, check that box. Depression, I have that too, so we just check all the boxes, save time. And if you have anxiety, you're already thinking what's going to happen when you perform X, Y, and Z a certain way in front of A, B, and C. How are they going to respond to you? And then you start to think, well, how can I circumvent that? How can I anticipate that I'm going to be judged? So then you go through all this rigmarole of trying to circumvent that. So then you look stilted and weird, and then you're more anxious, and you just basically feel lonely, and you'd like to have a friend is what it comes down to. But increasingly you feel more isolated. And again, it all starts very innocently. And some of us give way to depression, as a matter of fact, because the inner mind cannot express itself because our body or our circumstances don't allow it. Hence, why am I not more like him? Why am I not more like her? My life would be easier. I would be able to do certain things. And sometimes, if we're honest, sometimes we feel like giving up. Sometimes it's very despondent, very depressed, and you feel left out. Sometimes you can feel alone. You can feel friendless. You want to be able to do what they are doing. It's a very strong desire. Now, the one thing that we don't often see is that each thing comes with its own drawbacks. That is one thing that I learned when I was a person who needed a caretaker, and then I became a caretaker a couple years later when I went to foster care. I recognized that in that year when I was strong and I had the ability to take care of someone, that it wasn't as I had imagined it when I was on the sick bed, because I thought, oh, they can do anything. They can do whatever they want, and I can't do anything, and everything's great for them, not realizing how tiring it absolutely was. I actually realized it had been easier to have been on the sick bed than to take on the role of caretaker. And I have opportunities that a lot of people in my field are jealous of, do express envy about. And while I don't for 1 minute say anything negative about the opportunities that I have been given by God, they do come with very heavy costs. And I think everything does. So there's also the need to think about that. Then sometimes we actually can develop traits and skills that are more like him, her, them, that we would like to have. Now, being social, for example, that I don't really care to do that. I like being introverted. I like reading books. I like being in my own sort of world half the time, in my own headspace, reading and writing. But there are certain things that I have had more of an interest in doing, and you can dedicate time with a lot of things to sitting down and learning things. And like, even it's funny, but learning how to draw and things like that. My family's very artistic. My child is very artistic. I'm not. I can't do it. And that's something I've tried and I failed. And it's just not in the cards for me, and I'll never be able to do it, and that's okay. But I remember when I was 19, I told my mother that I wanted to be an intellectual. I remember one day I had observed her. She's the smartest person I have ever met. And I don't just say that because she's my mother. And I felt the same way about my father, too. And I still feel that way. But my mother is incredibly well-read, and I had always wanted to be able to impress her with something she didn't know, and I was never able to do it. I would pull obscure facts from history, and I just would never be able to pull anything that would surprise or amuse or in any kind. And it was always kind of like a game where I wanted to try to come up with something. Surely there's something you have not heard. Whether it was about the Macedonians or about King Philip or any of these wars that had happened, the Peloponnesian War, like, it didn't matter. She knew everything. And so I was 19, and I remember I didn't feel particularly well read. I didn't feel particularly knowledgeable about things. And I said one day, I want to be an intellectual. That's what I want to be. I want to be an intellectual. And I don't remember the conversation. I just remember having said that. And then from that day on, I picked up some books at the bookstore. one at that time. I wasn't a Christian, but I picked up a book called The Alphabet versus the Goddess, and it was about how literacy affects the brain, about how whether you come from societies that focus on oral traditions versus written, how it affects the structure of the brain, and then how that affects the placement and the treatment of women, basically. And it was interesting. I'm not trying to review that book, but I wouldn't agree so much with it now, and it's not even because I became a Christian so much as I'm a lot more read than I was at the time, but I was blown away by it. And so I started reading books about all kinds of different things, mostly histories, but a lot of about culture. I read the Greek and the Roman myths. I read about women's liberation. And I started reading about a lot of different things and things I wanted to know, and was able to develop something that I felt had always sort of been off limits to the intelligentsia, the glitterati over there. And then I remember wanting to cook and feeling sad that I didn't have that skill. And one day I developed it and started to make soups and homemade breads and all the different things. And so anyway, I just say that to say that sometimes you can develop social skills. You can develop how to dress, how to hold yourself. I want to be more like them. Try it. Go ahead. There's a lot of things that are actually learned. And if you look at people, it's funny because if you read about Winston Churchill, for example, and you look at the early examples of how he presented himself, I'm not going to repeat it because it's not politically correct, but the people thought that he wasn't able to function. Let me put it that way. And I didn't write down any great quotes, but from memory, I can tell you that a lot of oratory skills, great speakers, that cultural, I got to rephrase that people in culture have thought of as naturally great speakers. They weren't. They practiced. They learned. They sat down and they disciplined themselves and they studied it. And they learned. People like John F. Kennedy did not come out of the womb being able to recite these great and swelling words. They practiced at it. They learned. As far as writing, for example, I wrote when I was a child. I wrote about 250,000 words by the time I was 23, and I know because I counted them. I had a binder with all of my poems and stories. I had written a novel, and then I also went to work for a writing agency several years ago, and I have written many more hundreds of thousands of words. I have written hundreds of thousands of words on my own, so I think all total, I've probably written about 1 million words at this point. And my writing now is not what my writing then was. I have improved. I have gotten better. And that's not to exclude God. It's to say, though, that God blesses the diligent as well. So a lot of times the things that we see other people doing, it's not always naturally that way. And then the other thing is we don't have to be great at everything. Sometimes you can just do something because it's fun. You just enjoy it. And you might not tear up the world with it, and that's okay. There are lots of things that we've done just because they're fun and it's enjoyable. It's something that you like to do. And there's so much that people label as this set of traits belongs to this kind of person, and this sort of traits you can only do if you're over here. And that's bull. That is, you fill in the blank there, okay? That's bull. It's absolute crap. Baloney. Do not let them tell you that. You can be whatever the hell you want to be. You can do whatever the hell you want to do. Does not matter. Does not matter at all. And yes, that was an expletive. In my real life, I speak the way I speak, okay? It just is the way it is. Anyway, so all of this identifying ourselves in terms of what we do, and all of that is so much a social construct. The older that I get, I can tell you that from the community that I came from, the idea that I would be on the radio or that I would play music publicly or do any number of things, they would have laughed me out of the room. But they don't get to choose. We do. And you only have one life to live. And every person, it's almost like at the factory where you're made, inside your mother's stomach, when you're standing in line there, so to speak. This is metaphor. Don't get on me for, her biblical hermeneutics. It's not hermeneutics. It's not theology. Just work with me here, okay? When you're standing in the proverbial baby line and you are there, it's like you get a box of gifts, almost like your Samaritan's Purse little gift box. And each one has all kinds of different things. And this life is way more complex, more complicated than anybody wants to give it credit for. And everybody wants to put people in little boxes and niche everybody down and make everything comfortable and easily identifiable. But that's not the way things work. It's just not. And I love stories that people tell at funerals. I've been to a lot of funerals because as a gospel singer, you always get a free invitation to the funeral every single time. So if you like funerals, become a gospel singer, you will get to go to every single one of them. So I have been to tons, to literally everybody's funeral. And I also make friends with old people. I've been to all the senior centers, that will have us. We sit and we play our old time religion. We do the 3/4 on the banjo and the mandolin. We do the old time country hymns and the gospel songs. So I make a lot of old friends, go to a lot of funerals. And you hear the stories of old people. And old people that are very, very old people, you will hear stories of through the years. They worked at a chicken plant. We have a chicken plant in our area for some reason. And then, like the old lady that I know, because this is a true story, she had done foster care with troubled kids back in the day. And these kids, they basically lived with her and they were rehabilitated, and then they ended up being her children. And they experienced a good outcome, and how she's this little tiny lady, and she would go and she would take a rifle and shoot a buck, and she has this picture from way back when of her doing things, and how, when the tornado came, I'm like, oh my God, there was a tornado. Yeah, but we didn't fuss about it. We just got our rifle and we got into the. She's telling me all these stories, and I say all that to say that you're not just one thing. You have a lot of things in you that can very well be explored and developed. And for, a lot of you, life will continue past today. You have time for a lot of you to continue developing things and going on and learning what you might like to be about. So, suffice it to say, now I know I said a lot there, okay? But it's not always as hopeless as it seems. And as they say, this too shall pass, or I don't like that phrase. I got to be honest with you. I never liked it. So, but in any case, life goes on, and you may find yourself in a season where you had been able to do something that previously you had not. So it ain't over. The fat lady has not sung. And then the other principle I wanted to share with you is that we are different. We are different by design. If you ever, falling off this thing here. If you ever write about plants, like I did this one time, I was paid by this lady out in California to write about plants. I know nothing about plants in a real world sense. I kill everything I touch, but I'm a writer, so I write about things. You pay me to write about plants. I will write about plants, so I can write about other people taking care of plants. And plants have all kinds of different specifications. What's good for one is not good for another. And so you've got your shade, your soil, your sun, your water. What chokes one is life-giving to another. What would burn one is absolutely life-giving to another. I take a lot of shade, see what I did there, in the form of horrible online comments. If you followed me for 2 nanoseconds, you've seen that. I know somebody who the other day got one bad comment and was destroyed because of it. I got 1,300 one day, all because I said that a certain group of people matter. Yeah, I did. I had the audacity to say that a certain group of people, that their lives matter. And that was enough to send 1,300 people over the edge and send me beautifully, that's sarcasm by the way, beautifully written curse word laden posts directly to my inbox. Like they felt I needed to see it, up close and personal, I guess. And so I got a lot of shade because of that. And, if one comment destroys you, that would put you in the ground. And so we have different tolerances, although I don't really tolerate, I can't feel like I tolerate, I don't know, I did it. And I'm still here. Okay, so then we have a variety of people because the world is a big place. So you've got all kinds of gifts and talents that are on tap for a reason. It would be very boring if everybody was the same. If everyone dressed in rainbows and played the ukulele like I do, or the banjo, or whatever else that I like to do, you'd get tired of all the people dressed in rainbows. You would say, enough with the rainbows already. Can we get people that maybe are dressed in beige and purple and tan and pink? You would get tired of it. So there's that. And then what we have here is a couple of verses that I wanted to share with you. And in the Bible, Revelation 7:9, and you know it was coming, okay? After this, I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne and the Lamb. They were wearing white robes and were holding palm branches in their hands. Revelation 7:9. What you see, there's diversity. We are not the same. You don't have to be like him. You don't have to be like her. I know it's painful when you feel left out. And if people make you feel that way, take note of that, because they're probably not good people and safe people to be around. And, I know in the church you can't say that because, we might hurt their feelings. Good. I think we should hurt feelings from time to time. If people go around abusing other people and being ableist and making others feel like crap because of these, superfluous categories that God didn't give us anyway. So maybe we should cry tears of repentance over that, because we've done a lot of damage to people, especially when people do want to, feel pushed to suicide when they're totally excluded in that way. Okay, so that was Revelation 7:9. I wrote down the wrong citation here, but I know it's in 1st or 2nd Corinthians. And actually, this whole passage is worth reading. I couldn't transcribe the entire thing because it's actually too long, but it's really good. And goes into more concepts. It says, even so, the body is not made up of one part, but of many. Now, if the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being a part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I am not an eye, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as he wanted them to be. If they were all one part, where would the body be? And so with that, it's pretty self-explanatory. God is saying that basically he made us all. We need each other. Nobody is an island. You can't separate, away from all the people, or be so self-sufficient that, you're either not in need of anybody or so deficient that you're not needed. Everybody has a purpose and a plan and a reason, and God brings good out of everything. And so, in conclusion, I didn't write down the citation for this either. I know it's in the book of Isaiah, though. It says, whether you turn to the right or left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. It's personalized. It is unique. It is individual. It is each person having their own specifications, and the Father knowing each and every one of you, and which is the combination of steps that you should take to get to where he has you to go, and ultimately it's for his glory. And so at the end of the day, anything that we can or can't do is to bring glory to him, either through our lack or through our abundance. And so I also would urge you to take your burdens and cast them on him, any of your pains that you have, because it can be very painful, and know that he is close to the brokenhearted and he binds up their wounds. And I thank you for joining me here. You can subscribe if you want to see more. I am planning to do more of these vlog style topical videos. If you have questions, if you have topics that you want to see, if you have things you want to cover, if you have burning questions, hopefully not to, put a put ointment on that if it gets too bad. But go ahead and just leave them in the comment section, and then I can read them, and then maybe we can have a back and forth and an interactive sort of thing. But anyway, pass this video along to anybody that you know could use it. And thank you so much. Check you out next time. God bless.